Hey there everyone. Do without wilt should be the whole of the law. I'm Lexi Eve, and I'm going to be going back and forth with my Libra Alba videos and switching back and forth from one of those to a video about sex magic. So I have at least 3, 4, maybe even 5 videos in my mind on the topic of sex magic that I want to do. So I have my first script set up and I'll be going into it today. Today's mostly going to be using sex magic for intentions through ritual, and the prerequisites, also my introduction to sex magic, how I was privy to it in the beginning, my first few lessons, and how it came into my peripheral. So, with no further ado, let's get into that. So far as concerns Thelemic magic, there is no higher mysteries than those of sacred sexuality and sex magic. The phallic imagery of the wand and cup underlie everything from our holy books, the tarot, Hermetic Kabbalah, and alchemical doctrine. And it's by utilizing sexual energy that the magician can conduct the most powerful ceremonial magic. Also, the OTO makes a very big fuss about keeping their sex magic secret, although their members have published at least 93% of their secrets more than once, and can be found in a 5-second Google search. But regardless, let them keep their already published so-called secret papers private. I have no need to analyze such trivial papers. I will not, in this video or my future ones, directly analyze anything in Francis King's book about OTO sex magic, nor the book OTO's Rituals and Sex Magic, nor anything that was published in Hellfire Club books Amor Divina. Instead, in this video, I'll be going over everything taught to me by my late teacher, William Allen Wheeler, Mage Wuffa. In addition, I will go over everything else that I puzzled out myself to crack open how to use sex magic. It was one of the first things taught to me when I first got into the occult. And I don't have this in my script, but popped into my mind. There was a point in my magical path where I was dealing with some very, very high levels of magical attainment, and things got crazy. I had like a very intense Kundalini experience, and one thing that really probably got me through it, like I probably could have died on the path at that point, was my angel telling me, follow love and the sex instincts. And as soon as that message came clear in my mind, and I knew it was valid, I knew it was from my angel, and I put that into my practice, my life got instantly better. Things that were out of control and crazy suddenly were swept aside, subsided, and within a month I ended up finding my partner of over 5 years now. So, there's power in sex magic. So, I'm going to start out with things that were taught to me by my teacher, but also where I was first introduced to sex magic. So it was 2013. I've spoke about my intro to magic around that time elsewhere, so I'll just stick to sex magic. I was already adept at silent meditation and was studying everything I could get my hands on in books about all of the mainstream religions. In my studies, I would look for various forms of prayer, meditation, and rituals that I could do. I was in prison, keep in mind, so supplies I had access to were quite limited. I would try whatever seemed helpful for where I was currently at on the path, and I was very eclectic. I had just gotten into Wicca, not yet introduced to Thelema, and Wicca was available as a religious service in the prison I was in. I had already read their entire library about pagan magic, and was getting Kabbalistic and Hermetic books sent in the mail from family back in Brooklyn, and through the prison library system. The admin of our pagan service saw I was ready for more intense work, and we spent nearly every chance we could in the yard talking over deeper mysteries and techniques. We ended up coming out to each other, as we were both transgender and in the closet, so it was really the first time that either of us were able to process our gender and sexuality with another person face to face. This turned out to be vital for this art, as you must truly know yourself and what your likes and dislikes are regarding sex. Well, that was when they introduced me to sex magic for the first time. I had already caught on that sex was important to present-day paganism through such symbolism in Wicca as stabbing the cup at the climax of Wiccan ceremonies, or the interplay of the Hermetic elements. So I began asking questions, and that was when my friend, and I guess I would consider them my first teacher in the art, said this, and I'll quote them. Sex magic is probably the most powerful form of magic, and it works. But you need to train your mind to be able to concentrate on what your intent is for long periods of time. One wrong thought, at the wrong time, and something really bad can happen. They continued. One time I was being harassed by a guard in another prison before they sent me to this one. After a while, I had enough, so I was in my cell, set up and did ritual to hurt the guy. Well, at the climax, I had slipped for just a moment and thought about another guard, one who was a pretty good guy and never did anyone any harm. Well, within the week, that guy I accidentally thought about was in his garage when the roof collapsed. It broke his arm and leg. So that's one example of the potency of sex magic. It's also a cautionary tale and a warning about what could go wrong using this art when you aren't ready. Another day my friend said, so I'll quote them again, "You look at most people in this world who don't do magic, especially the guys in this prison that are really big assholes who are constantly destroying their lives. They're all hyped up on testosterone and masturbating to all kinds of fucked up shit. They have no mental discipline, so you know their minds are going all over the place, especially towards their problems, which they don't have any solutions for, and so they're manifesting all types of horrible stuff in their life. Then they wonder why their lives are all screwed up. You see, when you're doing sex in any form, you're releasing energies, and whatever you're thinking of slowly begins to manifest on the astral plane. So if you're thinking all types of crazy, messed up things, especially if you have a lot of problems in your life, and even on an unconscious level, if you're not consciously aware, but your unconscious is processing a lot of trauma and all the messed up things, you're going to start manifesting more of that stuff during the act of sex. That orgasm is a very big, powerful, magical experience. So whatever you're focusing your mind, and whatever your spirit's intent on, you're going to start manifesting more of that. So to continue with my script, yeah, the power of the mind. Now, this isn't some garbage like that book, The Secret, with their charlatans peddling the law of attraction that allows them to avoid actively fixing their problems, so long as they think that everything's perfect when it isn't. No, this is about fine-tuning the mind through various disciplines, knowing how to send forth an intention into the universe, while simultaneously harvesting the energy produced by sex to carry that intention through space-time, via the astral plane, and for it to manifest in the physical world. Better yet, this is about union with God and gaining God consciousness. It's really the opening that third eye. Now, still in prison, but on my way home, I was almost done with my time, another spiritually minded friend of the 5% Islam God body, who I had many long conversations with, brought up this following example when I asked him about magic. Especially, I was asking about sex magic. I had known him for a while, so I figured he might know something. He had said something to the effect, yeah, sex for ritual works. For men, we have sperm when we come. That's millions of souls, a ton of energy. I can say, use my semen to draw a symbol that means something, even has an intent, and depending on what I draw it on could also have an effect. That's millions of souls, all sent forth into the universe with a single intent to make something I want happen. Now, years later, I agree, and I say that any secretion works pretty much the same. Once charged, it has a job to accomplish. Also, there is bacteria in secretions of all types. That too has energy, which can be directed subtly with the orgasm, as I'll explain later. There's different branches of sex magic that I want to cover, and it will take several videos to do a decent job. The holy books, tarot, and Kabbalah have sex and gender topics which are very important. There is ritual magic, which can range from manifesting an intention to charging sigils, to devotional practice like bhakti yoga, to union with the holy guardian angel and supernal triad. There is then consecration using sexual energy and fluids, which can range from talismans, sigils, and chakra. Then, of course, there is sexual alchemy and creating the elixir of life. So, for the remainder of this video, I'll go over some prerequisite work you should have under your belt, followed by manifesting an idea through Intention Magick. So, for prerequisites, you need to understand the following. Liber E and Liber O are givens. Asana, pranayama, dharana at the very least. Then, of course, how to work with divine names, intonation, God form assumptions, astral magic, and invocation. For invocation, a crash course on the subject can be found in Magic in Theory and Practice, Chapters 1, The Principle of Ritual, Chapter 2, Elemental Weapons, and Chapter 3, The Formula of Tetragrammaton. That will give you the base level of understanding necessary for most forms of ritual magic. Then concerning the act of ritual, you will need to discern what magical weapons, if any, are necessary for aid in your rituals, and understand fully the symbolic nature of those weapons, and in addition, how to use them most effectively. Lastly, you may wish to employ an epiclesis to help with focusing your intention. If so, you need to know how to make a cake of light and the art of transubstantiation. Practice of the Mass of the Phoenix can help with that. Also, David Shoemaker has a couple of videos, I think on Speech in the Silence or Living Delima, one or the other, where he talked about a prerequisite would be Bhakti Yoga, so Liber Nu, Liber Had, Liber Astarte. Those are great texts to learn how to experience love for something. It's not just about lust. Lust can be a very powerful tool, but love I would argue, is a way more powerful tool. So, now moving on to Sex Magick for intentions. I think it best if I came up with 2 or 3 examples and then demonstrate, through explaining mock rituals, how to use this type of sex magic. I'll probably give you the best idea if you're unfamiliar with this art. So for a first example, you need to decide what type of, even before we get to the example, you need to decide what type of sex you want to use. Different forms add different variables, thus different energy and more complications to consider. Beginners, in my opinion, are best to start with solitary masturbating as a simple ritual, or as simple of a ritual as possible. A complex ceremony is no good if you cannot focus or understand everything you are doing. For types of sex, this can be use of the penis, vagina, clitoris, or anal. Again, different variables. Of these forms, you decide whether you are going to have a partner or go solitary. Is it an opposite sex, same sex, or intermediate sex partner? What positions are you each playing? And in my opinion, it's best to inform the person of what you're doing. Now, the prophet wouldn't tell prostitutes what he was doing, and, well, he often had a lot of difficulties in his life that may have been avoided had he been a bit more ethical. So that's on you whether or not you tell your partner what you're doing magically, and you decide how you feel ethically and morally about that. That's on you to discern, but for myself, I think it's best to tell a partner that you're doing what you're doing. There is also a type of sex magic that harnesses the energy manifest from performing sex in the least comfortable position. So for a straight man, he might bottom with another man. For a lesbian, she would have vaginal sex with a man. For a straight woman, lesbian sex in the least comfortable position, perhaps top in this case. It's really up to oneself to be honest about who they are sexually and determine this for themselves. This very last form I will discuss in another video, as it is much better used for attaining the siddhis, which are 8 powers, unlocking the upper chakra, and attainment of abyssal matters. Also for utilizing low magic and attaining indifference in a Buddhist sense. Very much in regards to Liber L, chapter 122, quote, "Bind nothing, let there be no difference made among you between any one thing and any other thing, for thereby there cometh hurt." You could if you want to learn about indifference, also you might check out any chapters in Liber Aleph about poison, and whatever you're not comfortable with, uniting yourself with it. You know, something I'm comfortable with might be something you're uncomfortable with. So my sugar is your poison, or vice versa, and you need to unite yourself with your poison so that you have as much integrity towards things, but also resistance and resilience towards things as possible. There is a gray zone of attainment in using Intention Magick to attain, but I will talk much more about that in a video about sexual alchemy. With all of these considerations made and documented in your magical record, you then do your ritual. Let's come up with a few examples so I can walk you through them step by step. First example, let's say you know that you are very interested in a specific field of study, like you know that you love writing and you would like to be an author. You decide you need to go to college for writing of a specific sort, whether it's fiction, biographical writing, or journalism. So you want the universe to help aid you in this process, since you have identified it as your will to be a writer. You are going to use Sex Magick to help you get into college and push you in the correct direction of which one you should attend and what courses you should sign up for. Here is what you would be doing, and let's say this is a solitary operation. First off, you cast your circle with the LBRP and LBRH, Lesser Banishing Rituals. You should next focus on some rhythmic breathing, and then use an energy circulation technique to alter your state of consciousness. This could be the middle pillar, or on my channel I have a guided meditation called the Circulation of Light, which actually has a part that energetically stimulates the genital area when it is used prior to Sex Magick. Now from here, you could do several things. You could write out or select from pre-existing rituals or holy books some verses that invoke either a deity or an idea sympathetic to your desired end. You might use some verses from Liber Israfil to invoke Tahuti, since your goal is to become a writer by going to college and he is the god of scripture. You could use an Orphic hymn that is in harmony with getting into school, maybe even the Orphic hymn of Jupiter for luck or for fortune. That would help in your endeavor. You might pick some holy book passages, or maybe you want to write out your own verses for this ritual. I'll do that for this example. Note also, this is extra. You could simply go straight into the masturbatory part if you want, as this is all about using your mind to set an intention, and then use sex to set that intention into action. It depends on you and what is better to raise enough power. So we did the LBRP and H, the Circulation of Light, and now we start a discourse with the universe. You might say something like, quote, "I enter this temple a child of the light. I am here to accomplish my will. I say out loud that I be heard from the heavens to the hills that I should do this deed. I have walked bare through the desolate lands and searched the deserts of my soul, and there I found it, a light that I discerned to be the Father, the Serpent, the Son. I gazed upon it and I know my will." You ring a bell, 353. And you continue speaking. "My will shall be accomplished every day. World that was, world that is, world that shall be. Hearken forth all your spirits to bear witness, for I am come to," and then you state your intention. After stating your intention, begin masturbating as long as possible, coming as close to orgasm as possible without going over the edge, and then slowly pulling back. Then come as close to orgasm again, and slowly pull back. You do this as many times as possible while thinking solely about your magical intention. Now, this could be penis masturbation, vaginally, clitoral, or anal, it doesn't matter. But at the orgasm, it is very, very, very important that your sole thought be about your intention. This is because at this moment, the body sends out a subtle energy into the universe around you, and this energy carries the thought form of the mind, which is temporarily dead and leaving the body, as we all blank out momentarily during orgasm. Secondly, you should focus your intention into the sexual fluids created, and these you should consume. Yes, I've done this when I've produced semen, now vaginal secretions, and they have the same effect as well as anally. In fact, anal secretions are very interesting. When done right, you will find that the rectum produces a mucus to protect the anal walls. When you finish, these secretions bunch up and produce a singular glob that is expelled and you can collect. You will know it is done absolutely correctly because there will be veins of blood running through the mucus. This consume while stating your intention again. I am here putting in a warning. Don't use any intention magic unless you are absolutely certain it is your will to do that intention and a part of your great work. All too often people bind themselves to something they want to be their will, yet has nothing to do with them, and builds up tons of karma that they must then work out, which may cause them several or dozen more incarnations to fix their blight, all because of one stupid decision during a ritual. So, I had to put that warning in. It's much safer a lot of times to use a generic intention, such as to accomplish the great work, or to discover your true will if you haven't done so yet. And for those of you who are uncomfortable consuming bodily secretions, which I don't know why you wouldn't be if you're trying to be a sex magician, so as an afterthought, I would recommend offering these secretions to either a deity that you work well with, that can help you with your intention, or a familial spirit, or your holy guardian angel. Better yet, if you have a physical representation of such an entity, you could collect it and rub it on the representation, whether that's an image, a sigil, a symbol, or a statue. So you're done with this first ritual. You close out with a phrase or some other ending ritual. If you did greater pentagram or hexagram, you close those and you just end. Here's a second example. Let's say you have a topic that you're passionate about, something socially conscious, whether it's human rights, women's rights, LGBTQI plus rights, environmental concern, animal rights, or anything else that you're passionate about expressing. Let's say you want to help others learn and become passionate about this by publicly speaking on the topic, but you don't have the resources or connections to put on a lecture. Well, here is something that you can use this art for. I'm going to use Liber 64, Israfel, for this example. If you do not know all the nuances of this ritual, or you just want to get my perspective on performing it, I have a video analyzing Liber Israfel on my channel, so you could find that, listen to it, it's not that long, and I break down every line by line how to get the most out of that line, in my opinion. So, you would go through this ceremony, invoking Mercury, as you would normally. Now at verse 17, a pause. Instead of waiting for communication, you're going to use solitary sex magic at this verse. Do the same thing as the former example. Pick a type of sexual stimulation that is best for you, and go for as long as possible without coming until you fall over the edge, no matter how hard you refrain from doing so. All the while, you must be focused solely upon your intention to get public speaking gig in the area of your expertise. You would consume the secretions, also with said intent, and you may even use a cake of light to reinforce your intent into that cake while masturbating. Finish the ritual out as you would normally after you're done with that, with line 17. Now, a third example, and it's the last one. Let's use a partner in this example, with the intent for either or both of you, since let's say you're both magicians, to gain greater clarity about your path, your wills, or your great work in general. To begin, let's switch this preliminary work up a little bit. Now, you could do the LBRP and LBRH like the previous ones, or you could use the Star Ruby and Star Sapphire for this. So let's go with these. I believe one person should do both, but that is up to you. Maybe one person does the Star Ruby and one person does the Star Sapphire, but I would recommend one person does the circle casting, just for simplicity. Now, I'm not going into using the Star Sapphire alone as a sex rite. You can adapt it to that purpose, certainly, but you could just use it as a simple circle casting hexagram ritual, and that's all we're using it for in this rite. In the future, I could do a full depth analysis of the Star Sapphire, but that's not going to be today. Just follow the instructions in the ritual and do it as a simple hexagram ritual to cast a circle. Now, if I am doing Sex Magick and I use the Star Sapphire, that is when I choose to open up with the grade signs of Nox, which are from 6-5 through the Babe of the Abyss. When I'm not using Sex Magick after the Star Sapphire, that's when I open up with the signs of LVX. So do what thou wilt in this ritual, whatever you feel is best. My reason for this is because the death of the ego at orgasm is a bodily function that interacts with consciousness above the abyss, so these signs seem more proper to me. Then, as before, you want to get each other into the right state of mind and body for magic. This will include pranayama, middle pillar, or you could do the rosy cross ritual from the Golden Dawn if you want to change it up a bit. You might even use the circulation of light upon each other. Instead of just charging yourself, you use your sphere of light to circulate around the other person. I've never done that. I think it would be interesting. Came into my mind as I was making this example. From here, there are any number of things you can do. So, for example, regardless of gender or sexuality, let's assume that there is a top and a bottom, and that the orgasm of the female is going to catch the intent from the male, so that when he comes, the intent will work through her, where the secretions are mixing. This way, no one need consume the sexual secretions, as that is something I will get into in sexual alchemy in a later video. Now, both people then will be focusing upon the intent I mentioned above, to gain clarity in their great work about what they should be focusing on doing. So that when the bottom comes, the intent will be ready, and when the top comes in the bottom, the ritual will climax and the intent will come to fruition in the mixed secretions of both. You could also focus on making an astral being that can receive the intent and go out into the universe and set matters into motion to manifest your intent. That's up to you. I just wanted to mention that there are many different options you can consider. Sky's the limit. It's as far as the imagination goes, so long as it makes sense. There are certain guidelines you have to follow in magic, but anything in between those guidelines, you can really do anything that you can imagine, as long as it makes sense and it works with what you're doing, you know? I believe magic should be simple. You should be able to explain it if you understand it, so simply a child can understand it, and it just needs to make sense. If somebody asks you a question about why you're doing something and your response is, I don't know, you need to take a look at that. You should understand fully every single part of a ritual, and it should be very simple. So, before conducting the main ceremony, you could both choose to perform a greater hexagram ritual each. Either a sun and moon or Mars and Venus hexagram would work, and it's up to the people involved, whatever appeals to them. Now, whichever you choose then should affect the next part. Let's say the man's going to use, well, the top is going to use the sun and the bottom's going to use the moon hexagram. So, the top performs the sun, and then we'll be invoking Hadid. And the moon hexagram is for the bottom, who will then invoke Nui. Or you could go with other paternal deities such as Isis and Asar, Hathor and Ra, Shiva and Shakti, etc. If you decide to go with Mars for the top and Venus for the bottom, then you could go with the beast in Babylon, Ares and Aphrodite, Mars and Venus, Hathor and Horus, Vishnu and Lakshmi. There's so many options. Whichever set you choose to work with, you'll need to write out lyrics and set up a ritual to invoke each of these. You could probably find any number of invocations online or in various books to invoke such deities, so just keep that in mind if you don't want to write out your own dialogues and choreography. For simplicity, let's just stick with Nuit and Hadid, Sun and Moon, right? You should consider addressing maybe in Liber 15 attire or something else suitable. Consider using the cup and wand and in the main ceremony along with cakes of light and wine if you want. Though the main sacrament in this is the sex itself. There are tons of verses from Liber 15 in the Book of the Law that you could just pluck out and properly order to invoke these deities. And make sure that there is a subtle sensuality amongst both participants, however you choose to word your lyrics. From there, it's all about sex and concentration upon the end intention. Especially at orgasm, both people should focus only upon the intent to gain clarity in their great work, or whatever else you would use this formula for instead. Note also that you may employ planetary shapes drawn upon each other of the sun and moon glyphs, and you could draw these with oils or paints, right? You could use body painting sigils upon each other is an option, if you're skilled in sigil magic, you know. It's one of those other things, be creative. You know, just as long as it works with what you're doing. So in this example, it's sun and moon. As long as it's sun and moon and about the union of these two things to create something, you could be very creative along that guideline. And boom, orgasm done, intention set. This video is basically at an end. So in another video, I'm also going to discuss using him to pan for anal sex, as that's always been a favorite of mine. But this one talk has gone on long enough, so love is the law, love under will. I hope that this has fueled some creative juices for you, if nothing else, you know, if you haven't learned anything. But yeah, Sex Magick is a favorite of mine, so I'll be sure to talk about more of this in the future. Cheers!